What's going on, Jerome's? Your Minnesota Vikings take the field on Saturday for their second preseason game of the preseason against the Cleveland Browns. The Vikings aren't going to play the majority of their starters. Same thing with the Browns. So it is going to be a twos and threes versus twos and threes type game. But that's perfectly fine because that's what preseason is about. These guys fighting and clawing to make the rooster. And we got a bunch of players that we're excited to watch against the Browns. Now, we can list all of them. And now, there's some obvious ones, like obviously Levi, Drake, Rodriguez. But it's not so much guys that have already solidified their spot. It's guys that are fighting and clawing to make the practice squad and the bottom of the rooster, guys that could contribute down the line. But you want to go through and basically you could just say, I'm excited to watch everyone. But here's some specific players to watch for on Saturday. Number one, quarterback Jiren Hall. Now, I understand. Come here. I understand that our infatuation with the Mormon missile, maybe it's a little bit disproportionate to his fifth-round status, but also I understand that he looked very poopy in the first preseason game against the Raiders. But this is important for the Vikings. Well, obviously Jiren Hall, but also important for the Vikings because with J.J. McCarthy headed to injured reserve, the Vikings have to decide if they trust Jiren Hall enough to be quarterback 3. Whether that's on the roster or the practice squad, like the practice squad, right? And it's going to be Darnold, it's going to be Mullins, but do they trust Hall as QB3, or do they need to find someone else at 53-man cutdowns, maybe making a little swappy swap, or signing free agents after cutdowns? All right, so this game is going to be really important for Jiren Hall once he gets in. We're going to see a lot of Nick Mullins on Saturday as well. Number 2. So for running back KingKen McBride as well as Dwayne McBride. So McBride's been interesting. Blazer. Now, all he did was run the ball at UAB, but he's developing some of these soft skills, had a nice receiving touchdown against the Browns in the second joint practice, also has been basically exclusively on the kick return team, which is something that he didn't do at UAB either. On KingKen, obviously busting that long touchdown run against the Raiders. You love to see that. I would like to see Kenny more involved in the offense, and also I would like to see if Dwayne McBride is going to be a contributor on this rooster. Number 3. Tristan Jackson, get down, baby. Now, Jackson, in my opinion, has solidified the wide receiver 5 spot. And since the Vikings aren't going to be playing their starters and probably going to keep Jalen Speedy Naylor up on blocks as well, I mean, Jackson could be one of the starting receivers with the ones against the Browns. So I think that he has a chance to show up and show out. Had a great couple of days of practice. Obviously, did extremely well against the Raiders, 4 for 100 and a touchdown from J.J. McCarthy. But yeah, I think Jackson's a great story. Yeah, been in the fold for a couple of years, rising up and really securing his spot. Number 4, wide receiver Deshaun Jones. So the high-profile UDFA, $225K. He's consistently put up plays, mainly with J.J. McCarthy at training camp, but I would love to see him bust out in this game and just really do some numbers and really show why he should potentially be the wide receiver 6 or a minimum high-end practice squad player for the Vikings. Number 5, Michael Jerkins. Now, he has to redeem himself for the field goal block. I guess he kind of did at the end against the Raiders when he didn't allow anyone through his gap. But Jerkins, it's pretty clear that they want him to be the future backup center, maybe even future starting center, because they got veteran Diamond Dan Feeney who could play center and guard. But basically, it was just, after Bradbury had his short spurt in the preseason game against the Raiders, it was just Jerkins as second and third team center. So obviously they see something there and would like to see him show up and show out. Number 6, Tyrese Robinson. So T-Rob is a guy like, I think T-Rob's got some staying power, man. Like, he's got good size, he's got decent movement skills, and I think that he could potentially get himself into the guard mix. Maybe not this year, but potentially next year. I think that he's a guy that is making a late push for the 53 at minimum practice squad. So you like seeing. I like seeing interior offensive linemen getting developed in-house, man. 7, so Walter Rouse. So Rouse is interesting because they want him to be the swing tackle eventually, 17-year starter between Stanford and Oklahoma, has sprung that key block playing right tackle that got KingKen into the end zone, played a mix of left and right tackle in the first preseason game. I don't know why you would have to play Quisenberry. Like, you know what you're going to get with him. So, frankly, I would have Walter Rouse start at left tackle for this game against the Browns and keep him in there for a long time. basically until the bottom of the threes come in. Levi Drake Rodriguez, which is obvious, but LDR's role, he's making the 53, and he should be a contributor with the first-team defense during the regular season. Number 9, Jaylen Redmond. So you can put Jaylen Redmond as well as Jaquelin. Redmond and Jaquelin Roy. So Redmond played well against the Raiders. Jaquelin Roy did not. That's what it comes down to. And these guys could be competing for one spot. And Redmond, the UFL superstar, I mean, obviously, he's got a little bit of fire in him. I like that. And Roy, last year's 5th-round pick out of LSU, didn't really get the time of day last year, sort of dragging behind this year in a spot where the Vikings need some production from him, but hasn't quite worked out so far, but certainly can turn things around. 2 preseason games left. Number 10, Bo Richter. So, superstar of the Raiders game. Can't he string 2 in a row? Also, you can throw in Owen Porter in there as well. All heart, all hustle. Was undrafted just because he short arms, undersized as well, but man, he gets after it. Physical freak as well. The pride of Air Force gets on, baby. 11, Andre Carr II. So the other Service Academy guy, last year's priority UDFA on Army. Now, he's sort of been lost in the soup, but had himself a nice couple of days of practice against the Browns. Would like for him to put things together in a game situation. I actually played pretty decent against the Raiders, but let's see a little bit more. 12, Dallas Gant. So Gant was actually the Vikings' highest graded defensive player from via PFF in the Raiders game. Former Ohio State, former Toledo guy, could play some great special teams, and could he develop as a solid backup off-ball linebacker? Yes, I think he certainly could. Into the secondary. So Nudie McLaughlin, in my opinion, I think Nudie's already established himself as the 5th corner, so I think that he gets a 53 spot, but he's really good, man. He's really good. So when corners come into the league, like there can be a lot of jitters, a lot of false steps. There could be a lot of sloppiness all the way around. Where, I mean, a lot of times, even in high-end college football, guys get by on their athleticism. But McLaughlin, I mean, he's an athlete, but he's not a high-end physical freak. That's one of the reasons why he went undrafted. So, I mean, if you're not as fast or quick, God-given ability as some of these other guys, like you have to learn technique. And that's something that McLaughlin has done in spades. He is a dog, man. I love watching Dwight Nudie McLaughlin, man. He's fantastic. So hopefully he'll show up and show out in this game and just really, well, he's already solidified. Let's see a cementing. Also, Nashawn Wright, who the Vikings traded Andrew Booth Jr. To the Cowboys for. Wright, huge physical dimensions, 6'4", 220 and change. Like he was a high-end special teamer for Dallas. I think that's going to be his in for the Vikings initially. Could he rise up and pan out on some of that potential that made him a 3rd-round pick out of Oregon State? It's very possible. Next up, number 15, me and Bobby McCain. So McCain brought the thunder in the first preseason game against the Raiders. And being a veteran, playing some safety, playing some slot, familiar with Flores, I think that he can contribute. I think that you could probably safely get him onto the practice squad, but I think that he's a guy that you definitely want back there in that secondary. Given the versatility, given the mentality, I think Bobby McCain is pretty damn solid. And lastly, safety Lewis Cine. Now, Cine played decent against the Raiders. Also, they were mixing him in pretty early and often. And we said this before. I think that they're doing this to try and showcase him for a trade. And I don't think that he's going to be making this 53. I think that the secondary is pretty damn deep, especially if they do add a Stephon Gilmore, so just adding another body to that defensive back room, even though it doesn't really impact Cine directly, but it does take up another spot. But I think, what if they just started Lewis Cine and just had him out there the full game just to try and show a little something, potentially for a trade? I think it's a possibility. Obviously, you want him to play well because he's on your team, but also if he shows up and shows out and another team takes a nibble and you get a little bit of something for Lewis Cine, who probably wasn't going to make the team anyway, it's a win-win for everyone involved, and Lou gets a new start. So we'll see. Anyways, that's it. 18, 7. A bunch of players to watch for second preseason game against the Browns. Let us know your thoughts, our thoughts, comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.